How did it all start?
Started with them commissioning one piece for Expo.
Was that going to be on the river?
And that was going to be, I don't know, somewhere in the Expo site. And then John Truscott, who was doing all the site works for Expo, rang me, contacted me somehow, and wanted to know the possibility of me coming up to do more, the possibility of me doing more work, making more pieces. So I flew up there, and then he sort of we walked for right along the riverfront. He said, "How'd you like to do a piece of it?" Because all this thing.
Jump at the chin.
Well, then I came home and designed all of the sculptures that would go along that riverbank, and then we found, or he found, sponsors for them in terms of the construction of them and the painting of them, and the light works that went with them. He got that all organised, and we got it all together and made it up in Brisbane.
And where did you get the idea for Man and Matter?
Well, it was the notion of the idea was that there was a lot of figures in the work, and figures dealing with all sorts of realms and possibility. Figures dealing with the landscape, figures dealing with sport, figures sort of running, figures exclaiming, figures sort of supporting things, juggling, balancing. I mean, all those sorts of activities were represented in the work, and once you have the basic figures sort of out, then the rest sort of flowed on from there. It became sort of like you just develop it from one sculpture to the next.
And how long did the whole thing take from the first?
About 5 months, I think.
So from the first one to completion?
Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 months. But from really getting I didn't get the go-ahead, I think, to sort of make the piece until, it must have been the beginning of January. I think we started making it at the end of January. So, and I think I first went up there at the end of November. So it was really only a couple of weeks to design it and get it sort of.
And so it was basically your first sort of idea, and you sort of built on that.
Yeah.
And it all
developed from there.
Yeah. And they liked the first thing you did.
Yeah.
That's all right.
No, it was good. Well, there's a certain sense, the work was in the vein of the piece that they purchased, so that I had that as a sort of a standard to go by.
And the construction of it, I mean, there was 27
major sculptures, huge.
How were they constructed? I mean,
we fabricated them all out of steel. The steel was supplied by BHP, and it was put together at Transfield Engineering. And we had a huge factory space out there. There was sort of a team of people that made all the pieces. And we sat down, we worked it all out, and they made all the pieces. I worked with an engineer, and we detailed all the specific elements that had to be made, like 27 figures, and there had to be sort of an arch that was sort of 5.4 metres wide, and then an arch that was sort of 3.7 metres wide, etc., etc. And then we detailed all those things, and then the factory made them all, and then we sort of went up there and sorted them all out and put them together, which was quite a feat, really.
Moving up and down
Sounds
there.
easy talking about. But
no, I read.
Yeah.
I need to think on it.
There's something that I've said about it.
I don't know if you'd said it, but it was talking about how you you're down in Melbourne teaching 2 days a week and on the plane working flat out from first light to darkness.
It was just Well, I used to be down at the, we'd started. Well, I know that we had some 6:30 starts on the side of the Expo, and most nights you were there till sort of 6, 5:36.
Those are really...
I had 3 weeks of sitting watching the rain come down, which was unbelievable.
Did that ruin...
No, it didn't. We just couldn't do anything. Couldn't weld, or so we had to weld all the more than the site, on site. So,
Yeah. And the paint got messed up on the transporting.
yeah. Had to be all repainted.
How did you manage that? I mean, it would have got dust all over them and...
Paint?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just like painting a house really in the end. You just have to paint that bit and you can paint it,
Mm.
We had cherry pickers to stand on and paint it. Team that painted it.
Yeah.
It's quite a feat. The original paint job was done out of the factory and that got all scratched. I mean, we knew that was going to happen in a sense, but it was good to get some paint on it.
Just prayed that it wasn't going to happen, but the worst always happens.
Well, you had to weld them together anyway on site because they were too big to take in completed. So you had to weld them. So those areas would have had to be painted in.
Yeah. And how many people were there actually about working on the whole piece from start to finish?
In the site works group, which was the sort of the site place that did all the stuff for Expo, I had an engineer working on it there. So it was the two of us. And when it got to the factory, there was really probably 7 people working on it there. And then when we got down to the Expo site, there's probably another 6 or 7 people working on it.
And so you sort of had to put your trust in them to sort of say, hey,
Oh, I used to leave them on Friday afternoons with sort of a set of instructions and then be back there on Tuesday morning.
Have you done the right thing?
And usually it wasn't the right thing.
So, I mean, did they make lots of mistakes with the cutting the skin?
Oh, there were always, I don't think you can blame anybody. It was just that the Expo site was just absolutely nothing, which it had to be, everything done on time. So you'd dig a hole, you'd have all of we had to obviously put foundations and things down. I mean, there were a lot of details that had to go into to support all these sculptures. Foundations down and getting lighting in so that all the lighting was submerged underneath the sculpture and stuff. I mean, that took a massive amount of work. But you'd go along, you'd leave it one night and there'd be holes for you to put in the sculpture, and the next thing you come back the next time they would have paved over it, at night time, filling in all the holes and paving over everything. So, the sort of the commitment factors.
Yeah, I've been so irritated by the end of it.
Yeah,
But were you happy with the end?
Oh, yeah. I think that there were a few things that I would have liked to have redone again, but I just couldn't really under the circumstances.
So if you went back and did it again, you'd do some things?
I'd do something slightly different.
And did you like the idea with the lights, the neon lights?
Yeah, I thought the lights were good.
They worked well?
Yeah, I think the only problem with the lights was that the compromise of putting the lights there meant the balls had to be different. And I didn't like the balls, and they were the one thing I wasn't so happy with.
That's what you changed?
Yeah.
How I mean, how did they make
I just didn't like the visually, how they sort of sat on the piece. They were wrong. I mean, I usually make them out of plastic. Out of metal, sorry, and these were out of plastic, and it just seemed wrong.
If they're painted, you wouldn't really.
Oh, you could tell.
You could tell?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I know, I can understand. Yeah. Well, I haven't really... I wouldn't be able to tell.
No,
that much.
you can.
Probably the general public, most of them wouldn't.
Well, I think they tend to like it. They used to sit on it. I think they'd have lunch on it.
So that the public, you think the public's, attitude towards it was
Yeah,
good?
I think so. Yeah. Oh, it looked terrific.
Sort of like lots of oohs and ahs and.
Yes, well, it really was quite. I mean, it certainly changed that whole walk along there, the whole sort of area along that area where it was totally transformed.
I know Mum and Dad loved it.